When I was a toddler, my mother took me to the New York World's Fair. Although I saw the Pieta by Michelangelo, I don't really remember it. But I do have one very strong memory of peering over the edge into the enormous man-made whirlpool. And I stared into that thundering meaninglessness a long time, pondering it. Nothing leaves me emptier. And I've been alone a really long time as a deaf man. Now, the idea that Pittsburgh is still following me with their claims to being friends after having done what they did to me, the horrible crime ring that ripped off the museums with Schulman, that tortured me, that used the church to promote the genocide in Gaza, the ugly crime ring that used CMU drama, Carnegie Mellon drama clubs, to cover up for the AIDS attack. It's a deadly crime that they committed, and horrible crimes that they committed against me. But they have accomplished what they've accomplished in their what they called group project. And I'd like to say a few things about that. It is as if we live in a world where there's a tug of war between what the West calls a rules-based order, what the United Nations and everybody else call international law. And Pittsburgh gets very muddied up in their head, the difference between the underworld and politics. They don't understand the difference between license and credibility. They issued working papers, for example, to an underage girl to entrap a terrorized and battered underage boy so that the police union could blackmail claims that Reagan was innocent or else. Carnegie Mellon Army ROTCs working with Netanyahu purposefully decapitated a late-term fetus without consulting me. I would have wanted Benito to have been born and plastered the school with it. And they call this their honor code. So they also believe that politics is to be voted on whether you have the right to testify. You have to run for office in order to testify to underworld crime. You have to be voted the right to believe what you do. And Irene, who is a peace so-called leader of the Catholic worker, who more than anyone else in our society is to blame for what is happening in Gaza through his manipulations of the script Martin Sheen wrote and planted on their group project target of assassination with the help of the Morgan clan at Carnegie Mellon. He is to blame for all of those deaths in Gaza. And he's very chummy with the genocide Daves of the church congregation who believe that it's a good thing that's being done by Israel. He's very chummy with them. I'm sure he makes all his local fat in the protest scene all the same. So Irene is sort of Renfield of Nosferatu. And one of the ways you can see that very clearly is how I was introduced to him, was through a band called He's Dead Jim, who were also in a band called The Shunts. Now, the group project knew that I had been given a nerve agent. And one of the other band members in the Shunts had a rock album called Pigeonhole. You see, they were really throwing little asides my way, but what was the essence of their group project was a dialectic that was established at the outset between paranoia and poison. Or as their letters to me said, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you. That was from a Zionist. They also called it pigment and figment, and they work in neurobehavioral researchers. I was actually working in a medical library where there were books about shunts, medical books, when the shunts came out with Pigeonhole. Now, ATS like to say things like, I wander the same streets and see the same faces. No, they don't. Their mother was not forced in tears beyond tears to move her house. They aren't deaf. They weren't tortured into Parkinson's. They don't see the same faces. They see the laughter in the eyes of their gang. And it's a very different thing to see the laughter in the eyes of the gang than to see the murder in the eyes of their gang. It's a very different thing that they're claiming. So we can put that aside. Now we know that Galloway seems to be siding with the Falwells and the church people. I have here a letter a note from the Zionists. I'm really sick of Nabucco and her stupid code about what boys should do and girls should do, which means just get married and stay with one person. But the working papers were not for that purpose. They were to dramatize a genocide. And they used torture on an underage child and called it a provincial norm. The NAACP conjured from a hat a girl who pushed herself on me, and I was not allowed to say any cross words of the sort that every boy who ever she nailed to her bedpost would say about her, and I never did, because I could see, for one thing, the undercurrent of language anthropology. At Tacoma Community College, which is a military psycho ward, a woman came over to me and said, I believe that the world has meaning because we bring it meaning. In other words, the good kind we get to select, and the kind that we don't need, we just put aside, get rid of, because we bring the meaning. Okay, so that's intelligent design. It doesn't come from the gifts in our surroundings and our capacities for healing. It comes from our fascist choices, which we impose on the universe. Now, it's extremely chickenly what they're after. You see, I was dealing with sadistic, terroristic murderers, and I behaved that way. I minced some words. I tried to go around the wide receiver. But their chickenliness is clear. They wouldn't in a million years have dreamed about telling the truth about these people, not in a million years. So they come stomping, plastering the skull with the walrus fetus of Benito. In the name of their honor code, they come stomping, saying that contracts in Hollywood are only authorized to lie for the perpetrator. And this they call bravery. So we get the idea of what's going on with this preventative so-called investigation of a deadly, deadly crime that they all deny took place. So they want to elect who gets to testify. And there's clearly an index. And it's a laugh, a 10-year-old little boy is going to get the better of Queen Elizabeth's armed guard. And like Karsh is a good example. Karsh is like Karsh and harsh penalties. That's the way their index operates. Mark is in the script, which is like Mark Twain. The family that married into the house for Fox Media to put the pinch on Sheen's letters stash was from Elmira, where Mark Twain's study is preserved. Mark. It's like Mark Twain. Mark David Chapman is like Mark Mann. And Mark Mancini is like Mark Mann again. So you get these name parallels. And of course, the church plays a huge role in this stuff. They attacked me. They sided with, if Galloway isn't with Brooks, isn't with Falwell, isn't with Franklin Graham, who extolled Hitler as back from the dead in his book. Hitler should be named Lazarus, he says, because Lazarus is back from the dead. If Galloway isn't siding with those people, how did Rosa end up with Brooks, the goo-goo Nazi of Jesus who locked me out of a church when a gang came threatening and offering and very likely to kill me if they had gotten their hands on me? Well, you're supposed to vote for what you believe. So, yeah, there's evidence for all of this, but you're not going to get anywhere with it because the Russians are coming to make sure that everybody understands it was an international decision, you see. They're not, they're going to blame each other while slapping five at the Leapfrog Oligarch Barbershop. Trumpy tune Putinese.